Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Griffin Hospital's Center for Healthy Living, located in Oxford, Connecticut. Here we are with another session of our Healthy Eating series. My name is Michael Desjardins. I'm the manager of Employer Wellness here at Griffin. Behind me, we have Chef Daryl, executive chef at Griffin Hospital. In keeping in with our lifestyle behavior and healthy eating curriculum, we're hosting an entree this evening. We're calling it a balsamic chicken with a roasted vegetable and brown rice. This can be done in many different ways. Chef Daryl's going to show us the proper way to do this. You can make it into a grain bowl. You can prep it for future dinners through the week using a meal prep setup. So to follow up on this, we're going to be hosting periodically some healthy eating series on Thursday evenings. Please stay tuned for the social media posts. You can like us on Instagram and on Facebook. We have quite a following, and we love the feedback that we get from our followers. So let's kick off the evening. I'm going to formally turn the mic over to Chef Daryl, and we're going to get everything started. As always, we appreciate the comments and the questions as we're going through the live stream. So please feel free to shoot those along, and I'll try to answer the questions as we go.
Well, good evening, everybody. As Mike said, we have a balsamic vinaigrette, chicken and roasted vegetables with brown rice today. A very quick dish once we get started and the prep is all finished. First thing we're going to want to do is preset our oven to about 400 degrees. All right, and once that gets up to temperature, first thing that I would like to do with this recipe is start our brown rice. So what we want to do here is get ourselves a measuring cup, and we're going to measure out. For brown rice, please follow the instructions on whatever brand of brown rice you use. But what we're going to do here is we're going to get about 2 cups of water going here for this. 2.5 cups, I'm sorry, excuse me. So we're going to get that going in this pan here. And while we're doing this, is because the rice is what's going to take the most time. What we want to do is make sure that our dish is all going to be complete. All the ingredients in our dish are going to be complete around the very same time. So now that we have that measured out, we're going to go ahead and get this going here. Get our pot going, and that's all. Lightly salt this water. All right, so that gives our brown rice a little flavor. And once that starts to boil, we will portion out our 2 cups of brown rice here into the pan and get that going. So while the water's going, let's start fabricating our vegetables. What we have here is a beautiful summer squash, or a yellow squash is also called. What we want to do first is rinse all our vegetables off. And then we'll start fabricating. So we're going to start by cutting off the ends. And the recipe calls for just a basic slice. So using our hands in a C type of form, we want to guide that knife straight down so that we're protecting our fingers, right? For all the people watching, I always say, I like to protect my fingers so I can point out the one time I'm right and my wife is wrong, right? So what we're doing is we're just going to keep cutting this down. So what we're portioning out here is vegetables that will feed about 4 people or make 4 meal preps for you, right? So this is a nice meal prep, or it's a nice family meal for the family. Nice and healthy, quick, right after work. You need something really fast. These vegetables could be fabricated the day before, held in the fridge, no problem, right? So once we get that done, we set that to the side and we go on to our next vegetable, which is broccoli. Right? So when we're looking for broccoli, we're looking to make sure that the buds here at the top are nice and green and fresh. There are no bruises, there are no soft spots. Keeping an eye on our pot to make sure that our rice is not, our water is boiling. Right now it's going through it's kind of simmering there. It's going. So what we're going to do is just get us some florets out of this, right? You want your florets to be typically the same size. You're going to get some small ones. There's nothing you can really do about that. But for the main part, the most part, you want to get all your florets to be the same size. So when we do that, we just kind of rotate it, and we just cut florets. And there you have it. Now, I'm discarding it but we can save those stems and we can make veggie stock. You can make soup out of that. It's not waste. All right. Next we have our red onion. We want to cut the ends off of that. And then we would like to peel it. Now, people ask me all the time, what can I do so that I don't cry while I'm cutting onions? And the answer is to make sure that you have a sharp knife, right? The sharper your knife is, the cleaner the cuts are, and you don't really get that membrane to release those agents that kind of bring tears to your eyes. So the sharper your knife is, the better chances you are to not have the tears or the waterfalls come down. All right? So what we're going to do with this onion is we're going to quarter it, and I can hear that our water is starting to boil. So once we get this quartered, we go down halfways, turn it, and then we do a crosswise. There we have a quartered onion ready to go. All right? So now that our water is going, we're going to come over, and we have, as I said before, 2 cups of brown rice measured out. That goes straight into the pan. And what we want to do, once that goes straight in, is let that come to a boil. Give it a quick stir, and I like to use a fork whenever I'm stirring my rice. It flows through the rice nice and quickly, and it doesn't clump up. So once that gets boiling, what we'll do is we'll turn it down, and we'll cover and simmer, all right? So now we have our yellow squash, our quartered onion, our broccoli florets, and lastly we have grape tomatoes. So the grape tomatoes are very basic. We can keep them whole, or we can cut them in half. It's really up to you and how you prefer to have your grape tomatoes in this dish. I will say cutting them in half will make them a lot less firm and a lot more, I guess, like a roasted tomato texture, which I kind of like. It gives it like a saucy texture once you mix it in with the other vegetables. But you can leave it whole or you can have them. Now that we have that all fabricated, our rice is boiling again.
Excuse me, Chef, we got a question that came in on Facebook. So the first question we got this evening, thank you for submitting this, Brian. He asked about the importance of keeping the vegetables the same size when you're going to be roasting them.
Absolutely. So the reason that that's so important is because you want to keep a good texture throughout the recipe, right? So if I have really large pieces of broccoli, they're not going to roast and cook all the way through, and they're going to be a little hard. However, if we let that broccoli stay and finish cooking, and we have this size of a cut for our squash, the squash will be overcooked and mushy. So we don't want that. So an onion this size is fine only because it has such so much moisture in it, and it has these layers here that allow air to get through there when it's in the oven. Your grape tomatoes are your grape tomatoes. Those are going to cook really nicely because of the temperature of our oven. So you're going to get more of a roasting versus a, let's say, braising or a slow roasting because of the temperature of the oven, right? So it's important to have all of these vegetables be the same size because we want the texture to be the same for all of them. We don't want to overcook our vegetables because then we're losing vitamins, we're losing minerals, and then the mouthfeel is just not desirable, right? It's already hard enough to get our kids to eat vegetables, right? So if we overcook them or undercook them, they're really going to have traumatic experiences with vegetables, which we do not want. So that's why it's very important to make sure that we're cutting our vegetables and keeping them all the same size.
Great.
All right?
I just got my kids eating vegetables regularly, so if there's anything that I can keep them entertained with and doing, keeping them
absolutely,
that's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chef.
Absolutely.
Keep the questions coming. We love to answer them for you.
So what we want to do now is we just want to get all of our vegetables seasoned up and get them in our pan. What we have is just a basic olive oil, salt, and pepper. So one by one we'll take our veggies, put them in our mixing bowl here. You want to drizzle each veg with no more than a tablespoon of olive oil. So what I have here is something that kind of regulates how much oil comes out, because we don't want to overdo it. So you've seen that slow stream of oil coming in. We're going to give a teaspoon, which is kind of like a pinch of salt, and then a little pinch of the black pepper, and then we just want to work this around. Get it completely covered and coated with the seasoning and the olive oil so that whenever you roast it, you don't have those dry spots that are not seasoned when it comes out of the oven. So now that we got good seasoning, good oil, what we want to do is align these in our pan nicely so that we get a nice good cook. So you don't want to have it stacked too high. If 1 or 2 stacked, that's not a problem, but you don't want to see 3 and 4 stacked because that's not going to give you a nice even cook that we're looking for. All right? So we want to arrange them in our pan really nicely. And we obviously eat with our eyes, so the colors of these vegetables are going to look really nice whenever this comes out. It's going to give us a really good color palette presentation. Next, we're going to go with the red onion. Now, with the red onion, because we quartered it and it has these layers here, we want to be gentle whenever we season and olive oil this, right? Because what we don't want is for it to break apart. Not just yet. When it comes out, no problem. But right now, we don't want that. So, pinch of salt, pinch of black pepper. We just work that around. Work that around on the bowl. Because of the oil, now, some of you are saying, oh, he's using the same bowl. Absolutely. All of this is going into the oven. All of these vegetables are raw at this point. They all have the same internal cooking temperature. So this is a safe practice here. We don't have to waste dishes, right? That's also the unspoken glory of being a cook, is doing the dishes afterwards, especially a home cook. So we got that aligned in. Next, we go right behind that with the broccoli. And we're going to completely just repeat each of these steps. A little olive oil. And what I do is, because I'm using the same bowl, I go a little lighter with the olive oil each time because there's some already in the bowl, right? A little pinch.
We've got another question that came
Absolutely.
with the craze of trying to use healthier oils and avoiding vegetable oil and stuff like that. One of the questions came in is, are you able to use an avocado oil or a different kind of oil to roast the vegetables?
Absolutely. So olive oil is always a standard in the kitchen. However, avocado oil is becoming very, very popular. So that would be no problem to use that. The oils you kind of want to just stay away from are like a vegetable or a canola oil. Or our favorite fat to cook with, butter, right? So we want to stay away from those. However, olive oil, avocado oil, all of those oils are perfectly fine.
Okay, good. Because I know in the past you would enlighten me on the heat points, the hot points of some of the oils.
Smoke points, correct.
And I didn't want to use something that would actually cause like a smoking, like a burning,
Right. So what we have going on here, that's not really a concern. Because we're roasting. Whenever we talk about smoke points of oil, that's mainly for sauteing or frying. Because we're just roasting here and we're lightly oiling anyway, just because we want to get a good crisp on the outside of our vegetables, we're just going to use a little olive oil here, and it's going to go straight into the oven.
Gotcha.
All right? So we have our tomato here right behind it. And you know what? Let's use these half tomatoes as well. We don't want to waste anything here. There's enough oil in the bowl already. I don't need to add any more. That goes down. This goes here. And because I'm a neat guy, I just like to organize this stuff in front of me here. And then lastly, we will bring over our chicken. So what we have here is a chicken breast. You can get it at your grocery store, no problem. What we want to make sure we do is we clean our chicken breasts. We don't have any fat on them. This is calling for our chicken to be cut into inch cubes, so that we'll do that. But first things first, I want to make sure I don't have any excess fat on it. To answer any questions that may be lingering. Hey, chef, isn't that where a lot of the flavor is? Absolutely. It absolutely is. However, we do want flavor, but we want to keep a healthy mind as well. So in mind keeping that, we want to trim as much fat as possible to cut the calories in this meal and keep the calories down. So I do have a little fat here. So what I'll do is I'll trim a little bit of that off if I can. And then you go. So that fat goes there, and then we just start fabricating this breast into inch pieces. And be specifically, pay attention to specifically the instructions and what it's telling you to do, because it's pretty much narrating you for a great end result. So say in an inch, because you're going to put this in the oven for a certain amount of time, and they want you to make sure that your chicken is cooked all the way through whenever it comes out, and everything is keeping its integrity. All right? So you got to keep the integrity of all these things. So we want to make sure that the chicken is moist, chicken is cooked all the way through, right? Now those two things are not always synonymous. Sometimes when we deal with leaner cuts, we get dry. Oh, it doesn't have flavor, it's too dry. Well, that's because we're cooking it for too long. These lean cuts usually don't take long to cook. These lean cuts cook really fast. And what we have here is pretty much a filet chicken breast, so this is going to go even quicker. So typically, at home, this recipe isn't calling for it, but I'll give you one of my tricks. What I would do with this chicken before we put it in the pan here is, I would sear it. I would give it some color. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure that our dish is appetizing and it looks good, right? So we don't want to wake up and grab our lunch for the day and say, well, that doesn't really look good. You're less likely to eat it. So you want it to look really good. On the stove here, I have a cast iron pan. So what I'll do is I'll get this going. Just a little light olive oil, about a tablespoon. Get that going. And once that gets nice and heated, what we'll do is we will put this chicken in. First things first, we're going to season it. So into the bowl it goes. A little pinch of salt. So what I'm going to do, because I touched the chicken, is we're going to change our gloves. So in between changing our gloves, we wash our hands, and then we change our gloves, because we want to stay safe. Chicken handled improperly can lead to foodborne illness caused by something we call salmonella in the industry. We don't want salmonella. So we make sure that we switch gloves whenever we're working with chicken and raw proteins. We don't have to worry about this thing overheating because it won't be in long. What we wanted is to see a little smoke coming off of this cast iron skillet so that we know that it's hot enough to get a good sear on the outside, but not cook our chicken all the way through. All right, so while that's going, we're just going to season this up. Pinch of salt. And I do a pinch and a half for our proteins because we want to make sure that we season them well. Just a pinch of black pepper. We mix this around.
Hey, Chef,
Yep.
someone, Carl just texted in, or excuse me, asked a question about if someone's trying to limit overall salt.
Mm-hmm.
And he put question dash versus other herbs that would be in substitution of the salt.
Right. So dash is a perfect supplement for flavor. There's really nothing that's going to give you the effect that salt gives food. However, if you want flavor, there's other things we can do. We can add aromatics. We can add herbs, fresh parsley, fresh rosemary, thyme, things of that nature. Mrs. Dash is perfectly fine to use. Lemon juice is another thing that adds great flavor to things. And you don't have to worry about the sodium with that either. All right, so that's awesome. I mean, there's plenty of other non-salt seasonings outside of Mrs. Dash. Your local grocery store has them, and it all should work.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
This all looks great.
And it smells good. So what we want to do now, we're going to throw this in. You can hear that sizzle. And that's exactly what you want. You want the sizzle. So what we won't do is, we won't play around with it. Once it's in here, and it's sauteing, and you got that good sizzle going, we'll just let it sit. All right? While that's going, we're checking our rice. We know that our oven is set and ready to go. We're cleaning as we're going, getting all our dishes out the way. And you can hear that sizzle. We have this delicious yellow purple, green, red. All of the colors are there for the eye. Our chicken is going. That smells great. Our brown rice is just about done. Once we get this into the oven, we'll work on our final piece, which is making our vinaigrette. And then we will be ready to serve and portion this all out for your meal for the week.
And a good point you mentioned, Chef, is the portioning out. And I think that'll be, when you get to the end, that's going to be the interesting piece because, you know, a lot of people complain they eat unhealthy because they don't have the time during the week to prep.
Right.
So, you know, if there's something we can do, and this seems pretty economical, cost effective, you put them into some containers, you prep for the week.
Yep.
And you've got a healthy vegetable, you've got your grain, and you got your protein. I mean, there's really not much you can ask for. This is a great combination.
And all of these meals, once they're cooked and portioned, can be frozen. So then we don't worry about spoilage. Now we have a meal that we can pull out of the freezer a couple of days before, and we can still take it. Actually, you can pull it out the day before.
Yeah.
If you have a microwave at work, you just nuke it for a couple of minutes, and then you're good. So I can almost guarantee you that our chicken has good color. I love a cast iron because it conducts the heat so well.
That's great.
And it's already browned, as you can see. So what we do is we kill the fire, slide this over. And what we do now is we just put the chicken right here on the end, where we have created a spot for it. See these brown pieces here. And this is what you would call a one-pot meal, so to speak, right? So all our veggies are done, cooked. The chicken is started to cook, and we got a nice sear on it. We put this in the oven.
And Chef, what was the temperature again on the oven?
400 degrees. And when we come out of the oven, we come out like this.
Look at that.
The magic of television, everybody. The magic of television.
Wow, look at how good those vegetables look.
So the integrity of our vegetables is still here. Our broccoli is still a little firm at the stem. The florets are nice and caramelized, and what that caramelization does is it brings a little of the sugar out, which makes it more flavorful, more palatable. Our tomatoes started to blister. Our onions got a nice char at the top there. Our peppers are nice.
That looks great.
And we're ready to start portioning out our meal.
That looks great. If you guys can see this at home, I mean, the colors just pop out of this dish. I mean, this is really appealing.
So we have our containers here. We can get these from Stop and Shop, Walmart, wherever you buy groceries. Most likely, they will have containers for you to portion out your meals here. We're going to grab a spoon, and then we're going to just start portioning all this stuff out. I'm going to grab a couple of spoons, right? We're going to glove up because we want to stay safe. Actually, while that's resting and cooling, let's make our vinaigrette. Quick and easy, all right? So what we're going to have here is our vinaigrette. Very basic vinaigrette, not many ingredients. I'm looking at 5 ingredients in front of me, 6, pardon me, ingredients in front of me. No biggie. Don't be afraid of something like a vinaigrette, right? I know that it's like one of the most important parts of the dish, but with a good recipe, you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to hop right into this. We have a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And of course, I didn't take the top of the seal off of this yet. And it's going to give me a hard time. So we go with a tablespoon of Dijon. Straight into our bowl. Followed by a half tablespoon of honey, which is right here.
And Chef, the advantage of making your own, you know what's in it. you're controlling the flavor a bit.
Absolutely.
And this also makes a great dressing. Let's be honest, right?
It definitely makes a great dressing. This can be used on not only your meal here, but you can save it for your salads.
Exactly. Better than a higher calorie ranch or a blue cheese or something that's a lot more fattening.
When we're watching calories, we want to stay away from those creamy dressings, and we want to go with a vinaigrette, a red wine, a balsamic is usually what's tastiest. Then we have here a half teaspoon of garlic powder, and this is important us to follow these. I know that once upon a time, you watched Mom and Grandma, and she didn't really measure anything out, but it tasted magnificent, right? And that's because she's probably been cooking for longer than we've been alive. So we went right behind that with a half teaspoon of dry basil. We're going to salt and pepper this to taste. And I'm going to go in with a half teaspoon of that and a half teaspoon of black pepper. And then it's calling for 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So let's stick with our measurements.
It's, my wife at home, she makes just a quick vinaigrette dressing. It's just, regular red wine vinegar, a little bit of oil, and just a little bit of seasoning.
Yep.
And we make it for all our parties, and everyone asks her, what's the dressing? What's the dressing? And every time she makes it, she just eyes it, and it's perfect.
You know what I say? I say the more simple your recipe is, the more tasting and consistent it's going to be. I always say that. I stick by that. And it's held true for me for quite some time. So now that we got our vinaigrette going in here, we're just taking a fork. If you have a whisk, use a whisk. And then we're just going to get a good mix on this. So all these flavors kind of combine and emulsify, right? And emulsify means you don't want to see your oil separated from your vinegar. It all should be one. So what I like to do is I have a bowl here. I'll tilt it a little bit so that it all pools in one spot, and I just take my fork and I just continue to go through it. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? So now what we have here is our balsamic vinaigrette. What you want to do is you want to taste it, make sure that the flavor is the way you would like it to be. And if that is, we're all set and we can start portioning everything out. So what's important is that we get a good portion on our meal so that one meal is not heavy, one is super light. We want to kind of make sure that it's all what it's supposed to be.
Chef, we just got a question from Christine out in the audience.
Sure.
Christine, thanks for sending this in. We call her Chris, of course. How long does it take in the oven once everything was done, prepped, and then put in there? How long does it take actually in the oven?
Well, the recipe says 25 minutes.
Okay.
So what I would do is I would use that as a guideline, right?
Okay.
Everybody's oven is different. We have Whirlpools, and we have Vikings, and we have this one, and Samsung, and LG. So everybody's oven is going to cook a little bit differently. However, the guideline of the recipe says about 25 minutes. So at about 25 minutes, what you want to do is open your oven, pull out your veggies, give them a poke, fill them. Do they feel tender? With a fork, they feel fork tender, they're ready to come out and they're ready. If not, they're still a little firm. My rule of thumb is 5-minute increments.
Okay.
Put it in another 5 minutes and check it. It's not done, another 5 minutes and you check it, right? Anything more than that, we can risk overcooking everything.
Gotcha.
All right, so now what we're going to want to do is kind of gauge it by eye. You go through the whole thing with broccoli first, and then you just go broccoli first for all the meals. Couple of florets, and then you come back and see what we have left. Let's say you picked a bunch of broccoli, and your first meal has 3 pieces, your last meal has a little less. What I would do is I would work my way backwards. Then start that way with your squash and add a little extra squash to it so that it kind of all balances out. Maybe it's not exactly the same amount of broccoli, but it is ultimately the same amount of vegetables overall. So then we're going to keep going here with the broccoli. And what do you know? That just happens to be what happened here, right? So now what I'll do is I'll go with a couple of extra squash pieces right here. And then we'll just continue to plate this all up. And this looks wonderful. It was simple. You guys were here with me live. You watched me do the whole thing. It really doesn't take any time at all. Obviously, I had some of this prepared already, just so that we could speed up. I know that your time is very valuable. However, we want to make sure that we get a good disbursement of all of our veggies here. All right. Container might not be big enough. This is for you, right? We're not trying to impress anybody. We just want to make sure it all fits there and we get a good amount of veggies in. One wedge. Look at how that just fell apart. That means it's nice and tender. One wedge per dish. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of pepper here. So we get 2 in each. Right?
Chef, we had a question come in.
Absolutely.
If we were going to prep this meal as a bowl,
Yep.
they asked if it mattered. I mean, I guess the question was, if we're doing it as a bowl, rice would go first?
Rice could go first.
And then vegetables on top?
Rice can go first. Vegetables can go right on top of that. As you can see, all I did was I slid all my vegetables to the back, and now we can just go with the rice. Obviously, it's kind of how we like to eat, right? Some people, they don't like to fork through or spoon through their food, so they'll say, hey, I want my vegetables first, I'll put my rice behind. Some people don't care, so it can go in kind of any order. What I want to do is just make sure that it's going in an organized fashion so that you can see everything.
Yeah, and this is typical meal prep right here. This is
it.
exactly what it is. I think everyone's in the bowl craze, and you can get a bowl just about anywhere right now.
Absolutely.
Typically, your bowl has your grain on the bottom, and then you've got your vegetables, and then your protein on top, and some kind of sauce. In this case, we're keeping it healthy. We're showing you the meal prep version.
Right.
But, of course, you can, like Chef said, mix this up any way you want. I think traditionally it would be rice bottom or your grain. I think...
Correct. However it is that you like to eat is how I would say to do it. I don't want anybody to get pigeonholed into thinking they have to do it one way. Ultimately, what's most important is that we're eating healthy. We have our meal prep for the week or for half of the week, and we're good to go. So now that I have all of my rice in, what I would like to do is this delicious chicken that has these juices on the bottom, that will go over the top of my rice to give it some flavor.
That looks great.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to go behind this with our balsamic vinaigrette to add that extra kick of flavor, right? So we got this all portioned out right beautifully. And we're ready to kick it up a notch. Changing the gloves once more. Or actually what I'll do is I'll grab some utensils here, so that all I have to do with my dressing is a beautiful drizzle. So some people say, hey, I don't really want that on my chicken. Well, just put it on your veggies. Hey, I don't want it on my veggies. Well, just put it on your chicken. Either way, you have a delicious sauce here that we're just going to drizzle over the top of everything here. And we're just going to do that for each of these meals. If you wanted to get fancy, you chop up a nice bunch of parsley here and go right over the top of this with some parsley. Like I said, we eat with our eyes first. It has to look appealing to you and appetizing to you for you to really be looking forward to lunch, right? I know many of us have been on diets, and the diet food is not always the best. And we kind of dread when that part of the day when we have to eat that meal, right? But what we have here is a very delicious, colorful, appetizing meal, and it took us not long at all to prepare. From start to finish, what would you say, Mike? About a half hour, right?
Yeah, tops.
A half-hour meal, ready to go, right?
And you've got four. You've got
four
meals. You've
four
got
servings.
2 meals, 2 lunches, however you want to look at it.
Absolutely, and this is good to go. And like we said earlier, this can go into your fridge. This could be lunch for a couple of days, or this can go into the freezer.
Yeah.
And we can save this for another day, and you can start a new recipe And because I know some people that do meal prep their week out, they do 3 or 4 recipes for the week. So this is one done. It took you a half hour. Our next one most likely will take us another half hour. So an hour in the kitchen, and you got yourself 2 nice meals. That's good to go.
And you're eating healthy. You're saving money.
Everything. We're checking off all the boxes. We're eating healthy. We're saving money. We're feeding our families. And everybody's eating healthy.
The last question that came in was option for other grains to use instead of brown rice.
Oh, absolutely. So we have, oh man, there's so many. We have quinoa, we have farro, we have millet, we have barley. A new trend that I'm seeing is we're mixing grains. We have a little farro mixed in with some barley, mixed in with some black rice and things like that. So I'm seeing everything. So this can definitely be modified, and it's really about what you like, right? So we all have our favorite things to eat that are not healthy, but we also have some things that we really enjoy that are healthy, right? So we want to incorporate those into our dish. Long as we have a good recipe, and I would lean on that piece. You have to have a good recipe. Everything you see is not going to taste good. It might be good for you. It might have tons of health benefits. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be palatable or you'll enjoy it. So finding good recipes and finding people that make really good cookbooks that you really like and you gravitate to, I will stick with those recipes, and here you have it.
I mean, and many of us struggle, what to make during the week. We get to the weekend and we're like, oh no, here comes a full work week. I'll use myself as an example. My wife and I, we start talking about what we're going to eat for the week on Saturday or Sunday. And it comes up, it's like, are we going to do tacos? Maybe we're going to do turkey tacos. That's great. Are we going to do some type of whole wheat pasta? Or are we going to do something for the kids? And both our kids are in sports, so it's a hustle and bustle, but you got to try to balance it. And I think doing something like this allows you to have those options.
And one of the biggest things that you mentioned earlier that I know that my wife and I speak about often is the money that we can possibly be spending on lunch during the week. Right? Maybe it doesn't seem like much during the week that you're in. However, you're tallying things up at the end of the month, and you say, "Hey, wow, I spent $180 just on lunch." Right? This can cut that out dramatically. So, this is great.
That's a great point. So
looks great. I think we should taste it, Mike. I think people want to know.
You think so?
I'm pretty sure.
You don't have to twist my arm, buddy.
I think they need us to make the faces.
This is what real cooks do anyway on TV, right?
Absolutely.
And we're not going to be the ones that go, We're just going to be telling
and it's very good. I will say, and it's not just because I made it.
Oh yeah.
Let's taste it.
The chicken's got good texture.
It's not dry.
Nope. The dressing is on point, as always. Definitely see the caramelization of the broccoli from the roasting. This looks really good.
Very good.
I'm going to enjoy this when we're off here. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I just want to thank everyone for viewing in and listening in. As you know, this is part of our healthy eating series that we do out of our Center for Healthy Living, right? Up in Oxford, we teach healthy eating, behavior change, lifestyle change to overall improve your health. Chef Daryl and myself are joyous that we're more than happy to show any of the activities we do here. In case you guys didn't know, we do have a Griffin Health page on YouTube where you can view these videos that we've already done. And also be on the lookout for, we're doing a Cooking with the Chef series that's going to be coming up where you can buy a pre-made box of ingredients in our cafeteria at Griffin, and then you're going to be able to take those home and do a live stream with the chef and cook those meals together. It's always nice to get the word out there, to talk about it with some of your peers, your coworkers, and it's fun cooking. A lot of guys don't like cooking. I'm with the chef here. I love it. I've been in the kitchen pretty much all my life so far and truly enjoy it. So once again, thank you everyone for coming and viewing. And be on the lookout for more series from us here at the Center for Healthy Living. Chef, thank you.
Thank you.
As always.
I'm glad. I hope everybody enjoyed. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, we are signing off. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.